Welcome to Music Outlook LA, the podcast which highlights the independent artist, whether they are a musician, vocalist, actor, actress, live audio or in-studio engineer, or a videographer, photographer. I'm your host, Will Kimsey. Each episode, we'll look at the gigs of the independent artists, from the venues we play to how we set up and break down, the gear we use and why we use it, and the info we hope you'll find useful as we all make our way in the entertainment industry. Music Outlook LA is brought to you by Kim Z Entertainment LLC. Go to kim-zentertainment.com to find out what they're doing for the independent artist. Kim Z Entertainment LLC. Independent entertainment done independently. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Music Outlook LA. My guest today is Ken Holt, an indie artist, songwriter in the Americana genre, coming out of Jacksonville, Florida. Ken plays bass, guitar, and the mandolin. He's also served as a pastor and youth minister in the Presbyterian Church. He's played professionally since the mid-'70s, having performed with a local New England band known as The Blend. He's also performed in opening slots for The Who, ZZ Top, Hall & Oates, 38 Special, Loggins and Messina, The Outlaws, Blue Oyster Cult. I haven't heard that name in a while.
Yeah,
Charlie
really.
Daniels, Foghat, and more. Today, we're going to talk about the Americana genre, his gigs as an indie artist, his gear, and as always, we like to share helpful information for all of us indie artists, us indies out there trying to make it, through the industry, make our way through the industry. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Ken Holt. How you doing today, sir?
I'm doing pretty good here in Florida, Satellite Beach, Florida.
All right.
That's right.
Satellite Beach. So what's your temp out there today?
It's about low 70s. Low 70s.
We're usually the ones that have the low 70s. We've been deluged with rain, and the fires have just now been put out, and now the areas have to deal with flooding and stuff. So for the next few episodes, we're going to say a prayer for the fire victims of the Pasadena, Eaton, and Palisades fires. So all you guys out there, our thoughts are with you as always.
Absolutely.
So let's just get right into it. I wanted to give a special shout out to my new friend Michael Stover over at MTS Management for sending you my way. That correctly, that's the MTS Management Group.
That's right.
And he is your manager, if you will. I know you manage your own career more or less. We indie artists do that, but I guess he does your promotion and just gets you out there, doesn't he?
Yeah, publicity and podcast. He's done some great things. He's helped to get my stuff out there, and I appreciate that very much.
All right. Very good. So we're just going to chop it up and get right into it, and we're going to have a lot of fun. All right. Okay. So Ken, why don't you tell us, for those that don't know, what is the Americana genre?
Americana. Well, I can give you of course my take on what Americana music is. To me, Americana is everything that doesn't fit neatly into every other genre.
Okay.
It's Americana music is, I think, is a very it's a very broad sweep. It's a big umbrella, and there's lots of different kinds of genres and styles that fit under there. If you're not if you're not maybe folk music, or if you're not jazz, or if you're not a blues band, or whatever, or if you're not pop country, or one of those kind of genres that are more clear, then if you're not one of those, then you kind of wind up in that Americana that Americana genre, which is the reason that I think of myself as being an Americana artist, because I don't fit neatly, into one of the other categories.
All right. So basically, I guess you could say it's a blend of everything. It's like a because I've heard other
Yeah,
Americana.
yeah,
When you came on my radar, I of course listened to your material like I do with everybody.
yeah.
And there's another artist who will be coming later on, also through Michael, also in the same genre.
Right.
Um, and I noticed that it's kind of country-esque, a little rockish. It's a
Right.
blend of all sorts of stuff, and that's what I like. It's not necessarily nailed down into one fit traditional genre or box,
Yeah.
if you will, you know.
Yeah.
Uh,
Exactly. Yeah.
so
Exactly.
that's what I like about music in general. I was taught in college, music has rules that are meant to be broken. So I kind of like
Yeah.
that, and it seems to fit. So
Yeah.
I noticed also that your bio at kenholtmusic.com happens to mention a fascinating mix of influences.
Right.
Your your uncle Henry's mandolin up
Yeah.
to your classic pop and rock. And I'm wondering, how did having this kind of input or diverse shapes, if you will, create your own musical style and lead you to Americana?
Um, well, I think what I do is I write a song, and then I just try to let that song speak for itself, and I try to add instrumentation, if you will, to that song that fits that particular tune. And if it calls for if it calls for a mandolin part, then I will try to play that mandolin part. If it calls for dueling kind of guitars, or harmony guitars, like Allman Brother esque, kind of harmony guitar playing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if I've got a guitar line there, and I'll hear a line like that, and I'll say, well, gee, I could add a harmony part to that, and then it kind of has that kind of Allman Brother esque kind of sound to it, in parts. And if it's more of a straight country kind of thing, or if it's a rock and roller thing, or whatever the song calls for, I feel the freedom to just kind of add and play in the studio, whatever I think is necessary. And if I can't play it, and there's lots of things I can't play, that's for sure, then I'll find a friend or invite someone to come over and do some tracks for me. So I'm not limited. Gee, I'm a an Americana artist, so I have to sound exactly like this every time. No, my songs can sound like whatever the song calls for.
Right. Kind of like something that, well, when I write, most of my stuff is instrumental, but
Right.
I have learned over the years how to write lyrics. And when I've been presented with a set of lyrics, they all tell a story. That's what
Right.
we do. We tell stories. I tell my stories instrumentally, of course, as a primarily a jazz, R&B, pop musician, also who's playing in the church. But um, we tell the stories, and the lyrics I find have to match with the music to some degree, and vice versa.
Sure. Yeah.
So I'll take a set of lyrics, read the story behind them, and let that set the mood that needs to be set for the song, and take it
Exactly.
from there.
Yeah.
And that'll give me my tempo, whether it's going to be a ballad, mid tempo, or an upbeat song.
Yeah.
A lot of times it'll give me my key, whether it's a major key, minor key, whatever. And then I take it from there and I come up with my progressions, do the recording and everything else.
Sure.
So I like that. I
Yeah.
like that about music. It's never one set thing. So
Right.
grew up in 7 states. Your dad was a Marine.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that showed you a lot of musical scenes that you got exposed to. So, did any particular location or experience stand out in terms of its impact on your musical development?
I think, when I was a kid, probably not so much when I was younger, but when I got into high school and got into college in Jacksonville. I mean, those are the years that Southern rock was really started to happen. People really weren't calling it Southern rock until maybe the late '60s and the '70s. The '70s. So I was in Jacksonville at that time, and I mean uh, bands like Leonard Skinner and 38 Special and Molly Hatchet and all those real guitar oriented bands. Um,
The classics.
yeah, they all came out of the west side of Jacksonville,
Yeah, yeah.
which is where I lived, and
Hmm.
and so during those years, when I was really playing guitar at that time, I was listening to all that stuff, and the Allman Brothers were playing at some of the guys in the Allman Brothers are playing at little clubs around Jacksonville, and the Allman Brothers for the first time were setting up on a radio station lawn somewhere and playing for free just so they have a place to play. So I was grew up listening to all that stuff, and so I would say Jacksonville. My high school, college years certainly. Listening to those kinds of bands. I mean, I still love the Allman Brothers. I mean, I was sad when when every that the Allman Brother, when the Allman Brothers started getting older and started, and Greg died and Dickie
Hmm.
Dickie Dickie Best recently passed away, and and that was really an end of an era for me, because I felt connected to all those people, you know.
Yeah. Like I said, the classics. I think we're
Yeah.
maybe about a decade apart. Um, I grew up in the 70s, born in the 60s, and these were songs and bands that I heard as a child coming up, getting ready for school, having my breakfast. It would be on AM radio, um, just to have something going in the background. Family all getting ready, going to school, what have you, work and all that. And I would hear these songs all the time. Um, and see, and of course, the old, what was that? The K-Tel commercials for the music that they used to sell on TV.
K-Tel,
Um,
yeah.
yeah,
What were
and
some of those songs? K-Tel, what was some of that stuff? That was
oh
like
man, they had so many
AM.
genres they covered. They did uh again at the time it was called the classic rock. So they did Allman Brothers.
Oh, okay. All right.
Leonard Skinner was on the commercials, I think. I just remember
Right.
Molly Hatchet, you know, from the 70s and 80s. Once I got into high
Right.
school, people told me about some of these bands and everything. And,
Yeah. Guitar
uh,
armies.
oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And I
The
listened,
Outlaws. Go
I
ahead.
listened to a lot of different, and still do to this day, listen to a lot of different styles of music. But
Right.
like I said,
Right.
those are the classics. And, you know, you're bringing out some memories, man. I love it. I love it. I love it. So with the blend, which is, as I mentioned earlier, a New England based regional band. And
Right.
speaking of New England, that's where I went to college. I was at Berklee College of Music in Boston. So
Oh, okay, cool.
I think I even might have heard of them. But you've also gotten the opportunity to open for some of the greats.
Yeah.
So, tell us about some of the memorable experiences from that time, and how do those experiences help you and inform you through your music today?
Yeah. Well, that's a good question. That's a good question. I mean, those certainly were memorable years for me. When you're in your 20s, and especially when you're in your 20s, and you get a taste of the rock and roll lifestyle, and gee, I want you want to be a rock and roll star, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Sometimes at that age. So I definitely had a grand taste of that. The band that I was playing with, like you mentioned, the Blend. Yeah, we were basically started off as a New England club band. Then we got a record deal with MCA, and we did a couple albums for MCA, and did and some subsequent tours, and like you say, we got to play with a lot of big stars, big bands and everything. And so what did I learn from that? You want to know, huh? What did I
Uh-huh.
learn
Yeah.
from that? Well, I learned. Well, I actually wrote down a couple things. One is if you do it for the money, you'll be disappointed.
And isn't that the truth?
Little pearls of wisdom. If you do it for the money, you'll be disappointed. And I mean, I have to think about that and remind myself of that one every day. I'm
Hmm.
still living with that one. I mean, I'm an independent artist now. I mean, if I'm doing it for the money, I need to be doing something else. You know, so you have to
Well,
you have to do it because you love music, and you want to produce music, and you want to get something out, and you want somebody to listen to it. You want
hmm.
to be heard. You want somebody to go, gee, I heard your song and I like that. So I learned. I mean, I'm clearly not doing it for the money right now. I'm doing it for the love of it.
Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
money, but the love of playing music. Um, I had some really memorable. I mean, when we played with the Who, for instance. I mean, we were at the Boston Garden. I mean, that was probably the biggest gig we had in terms of number of people. It was like 30,000 people in the Boston Garden, and you know, if you want to talk about amplifiers and equipment and all that stuff, I mean, you can you have a vision in your mind what the Who had on the stage, right?
Hmm. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
this massive, massive wall of sound. So we were playing, a lot smaller venues than the Boston Garden on a regular basis. So we showed up with two Fender twin reverbs,
Hmm.
that's the guitar players, and I had an Ampeg SVT, set up with a couple of cabinets. So we showed up with these Fender twin reverbs that have two 12-inch speakers, in them. And so the road crew from the Who, I mean, we were setting up for our sound check. They said, "Man, you're not really going to use those twin reverbs in here in the Boston Garden, are you?" And I said, you're not. This is you're joking this, right? So we said, well, no, we're actually not going to use these. We're actually going to disconnect one of those 12. So we're only going to be using one 12-inch speaker, and 90 watts, and that's what we're going to be using in the Boston Garden. They said, man, you Yankees, I don't know, you guys you guys might be dreaming, but it worked just fine, and so you just throw a microphone in front of it. If you got a good sound man out there, it's going to happen out front. So
Yeah.
great.
One of the speaking of gear and everything, I can relate to having to lug around gear. I'm a keyboard player, so I've got to get my two
Sure.
keyboards, my Korgs, um, and I'm a Behringer nut when it comes to this audio sound.
Right.
Um, I've got, and I was just looking it up because I should know my product name. Behringer keyboard amp. It's one of the Ultratone series, the KMDs,
Right.
um, and the live audio speakers. I have those too with the mixer and the interface and the whole 9 yards. And we'll get to
Sure.
the DAWs
Sure.
and everything else in a minute. But jokingly wanted to correct you when you said you played the garden. If you're a native, it's the garden.
The garden.
Yeah, it's up in the
Oh
garden.
yeah,
Remember,
yeah.
you parked the car in Harvard Yard.
Like the cap. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. You went to Berkeley, so you speak the language. Yeah.
it took a minute, and people would
the ga-
say, "Where are you from?" And I'd say, "I'm from LA. I'm a native Angelino." And they'd say, "Oh, I can tell by your accent." We don't have accents. Yeah, you do. And over the years, I was like, "Well, I guess
right.
everybody has an accent to somebody else." So,
Absolutely.
for
Yeah.
those that aren't in the know, it's garden. And now it's
Garden.
the TD Waterhouse Garden. I mean, you've got corporations buying, if you will, or
Right.
endorsing
Right.
these stadiums that we grew up knowing as like like the Boston Garden, now
Yeah.
renamed. And then you go to Detroit, and that got renamed where the Pistons play, and Auburn Arena or whatever it's called. It's like, oh, okay, all these names. It just, I get on random thoughts sometimes, so bear with me. It's just like, oh, okay, well, yeah, there. But that sounds great. You got to play the Garden. That's that's crazy. That is crazy. We would try to sneak in to watch Celtic games. Um,
Yeah. Sure.
Climb up on the side of the building, up the roof, and go through the top there, and just down there and get in the nosebleed seats.
So
Um, but yeah,
I didn't know it
that's
wasn't. I didn't realize it wasn't the garden anymore. The garden and the garden anymore.
yeah,
I didn't know. I'm really dating myself then. Geez.
yeah. No,
What is
they
it now?
still.
The TD
Well, it's
Waterhouse
the TD Waterhouse Garden.
garden. So it's a
Yeah,
different garden. They got
yeah.
a different
It's
gardeners
a
in.
different
Yeah,
garden in the garden.
different
There you
gardener in the
go.
garden.
I love it. I love it.
Well, I was a Southern guy. I mean, I was from Florida, and all the other guys in the band are from Maine. So if you want to talk about accents, I mean, I'm not going to try to emulate a Maine accent, but it's pretty, it's pretty unique. If somebody's from Maine and they start talking to you, you must be from Maine. And so as a Southern guy, going up north and living up north for 10, 12 years, I mean, it took me a while to understand what people were saying, and I kind of looked at, often had to have an interpreter because I wasn't exactly sure what was being said. But after a
Yeah.
while, you pick it up.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Same. Basically, for all the New England states, one of my best friends is originally from Maine,
uh-huh.
um, and he's got that similar accent. And I had to
Yeah,
really put my ear to, not literally to his face, but I had to put my
yeah,
ear in it. And it's like,
yeah.
oh, that's what you're saying. Okay,
That's what
I
you're
get you.
saying.
I
Yeah,
get it now. All right.
yeah,
And get used to the whole Upper East Coast accent difference.
yeah.
Um,
There's a whole
and
sense of humor too. There's a whole sense of humor, that you have to come to understand too. But Maine, just for the record, Maine is a beautiful place. I love Maine, and some of my best friends in the world are in Maine right now. Right around Kennebunkport, Maine.
mm-hmm.
Southern Maine, and I mean, I really love it up there, and sometimes I even think about moving back up there. And then my friends say, "You don't want to move back up here, man. It's too cold. What are you from Florida? You gonna move back to Maine? Are you crazy?" But I do think about it because I really love the people up there. I'm good friends.
Yeah. Um, we've got great weather out here too. And when when it's not raining, um,
Yeah,
the cold got to me when I lived in Boston, and this was mid 80s, and first cold snap hit. I thought I was ready, and clearly I wasn't. I mean, if you buy a heavy coat for here from Los Angeles and take it with you back east, it's not enough. It just isn't, and
yeah,
the
yeah.
clothes are heavier, and so I had to go to one of the local department stores, buy a coat and everything else. But I understand when your friend said you don't want to move back up there. I'm staying in L.A.
That's right,
I'm
man. You're gonna layer. Yeah,
Yep,
yeah.
I'm a beach
Okay.
baby. I'm gonna stay here as long as I'm within an hour of the beach. I'm okay. So with the blend, you had that rock and roll going on there.
Yeah.
Um, when you toured, were you always on the bass, or did
Yeah.
you go over to the guitar or the mandolin?
No, I was the bass player. I didn't start playing the mandolin until just a couple of years ago, really. I just thought it was it's a great instrument, and I was exposed to it through my uncle Henry, through my family, of course. But I just kind of picked up the mandolin because I wanted some mandolin sounds on my songs, in the studio.
Hmm.
So that's
So
that's
that
how I got into.
so that helped
That's
you
how I.
then go from that was, I guess, your transitioning bridge, then, if you will, to get from playing as the bass player
Yeah,
to going into your songwriting and leading as a front man for your group.
yeah, yeah.
So that's what got you from one to the other, was picking up the mandolin and switching out, huh?
Well, the mandolin, the guitar. I mean, I started out as a guitar player and played
Uh-huh.
guitar for, took guitar lessons when I was a kid and everything, and then played guitar all through high school and high school bands and whatnot. And then it wasn't until I went to New England that I started playing bass, because they need this band. These folks, friends of mine up there, needed a bass player, so that's when I got into playing bass and did that, for all those years. And then after that band ended, then there I was. I mean, I was right. Even though I was playing bass, I had acoustic guitars. I had guitars, and everything. I was still
Hmm.
writing,
Hmm.
working on writing songs and whatnot. And and so when the band ended, I mean, if I was to continue writing songs, I needed to do it on a guitar and not on a bass, you know. So I just pretty much went back to guitar, and that's kind of moved back into the whole songwriting thing. But I mean, I still got my bass here and hanging on the wall in my studio,
Hmm.
and then, like on my album, I play most of the bass parts, you know, and I really enjoy that. It's just that's always fun for me. But if you want to write music, I mean, I don't know, you use what? You use your piano, right? Your keyboards,
Right.
and
Hmm.
I'm
I
use
do.
my, I use my acoustic guitars. That's pretty much what I write on. So it's really that desire to just, to continue to create and write music, and something that I could do by myself, that I wouldn't need a full band in order to do it.
Right. Because you need the
So
foundation of chords
yeah, yeah, yeah.
to
It's,
write your
I
songs.
mean,
I mean, you could write an all bass song, but you still have to have your chords. I mean, I've heard jazz musicians where it's just a drummer and a bass player, but they do it on purpose. But at the same time, there is some chordal foundation going on where they
right,
know that the even the drummer has some semblance or some sense of chord structure going on in his head, where he knows where he's going or she knows where she's going in the song. Um,
right,
so, I mean, you got to have it. So it makes perfect sense. I write with my keyboard, you write with the guitar, and
right. Yeah,
especially if you're going to start writing melodies and harmonies,
right.
you got to be able to, for me, to teach the background singer their part. I have to, having led choirs before and everything, I had to learn all four parts. I had to learn the soprano, the alto, the tenor, and the baritone or the bass. Sometimes it was five, because,
Wow.
baritone is kind of like between tenor and the bass. So if you had five-part harmony with the really, really low, um, like Bowser from Sha Na Na or Oak Ridge Boys,
Oak Ridge Boys.
um,
Yeah,
when they did Elvira. What was that? Giddy
yeah,
up, boomba, boomba,
yeah,
ba
yeah,
bow, bow, giddy up.
yeah, yeah.
I
Way
hope I was
down
even
there.
in the right key when I did that. I love that song.
Yeah.
You got,
Really?
oh God, I love Elvira.
I
That was my jam right there. Especially when it got, because I love bass. I played a little in high school, and I'm going to be picking it back up, trying to get my
Yeah,
chops back. I piano, main instrument, clarinet, little sax, little drums, and bass. And my music teacher, a similar story to you, where your band, the blend, and your friends needed a bass player. So I'm in a band where our other guitar player we needed a bass player too, and so he just volunteered and picked up the bass. And he never really
Yeah.
played bass before, but he had the fundamentals going. And
Yeah.
I did want to ask you, um, but I don't think it was for you. Was the transition to go from one to the other difficult? From the guitar to the bass. Was there any difficulty in that? Any learning curve?
Learning the bass, you mean?
Yeah.
Or learning how to play the bass? Well, I probably I probably play the bass more like a guitar player would play the bass than a trained bass player would play the bass. I mean, I play with a pick,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just a different style. I guess of playing more of a guitar player's style. I'm not sure I could describe that, but I think that must be what I do because I was never a trained bass player.
Right. Right.
I just knew my way around the neck because I had been there before on a guitar.
Right.
Except now I had four strings instead of six.
Mm-hmm.
And
G-
so I think one of the transitions for me was just learning how to play less, just play
right.
less, just keep it simple. And it took me a while to do that. When I first started playing bass, I was too busy. I was playing way too much.
Right.
I was just
Right.
playing too
And
many notes,
yeah,
and I
and it's
just had
just
to get it.
basically keeping the tonic and the root, um, keeping that bottom going on,
Right,
because
right,
the three foundational instruments in a band, and it could fluctuate. There's two answers really, is either literally from the bottom up, the drums, the bass, and the guitar, um, or you can swap out the guitar for a keyboard. But as long as those three and or four of those instrumentalists are locked in, you have your foundation. Everything else
right.
just goes right on top, one on
Yeah,
top of the other. So,
yeah, yeah,
you can get that going
yeah,
on. Um,
yeah.
so your instruments, speaking of, they include the bass and the guitar and the mandolin. Um, and we were talking earlier about different instruments and brands and things of that nature. So tell me about the Red Gretsch.
The red Gretsch. Well, Gretsch. In case maybe you didn't know. I mean, Gretsch makes a quite an extensive guitar line, and they've got at least three or four different kind of lines. They've got their most expensive line. I mean, I guess kind of like Fender. I guess they've got
Mm-hmm.
different. You can get the same. You can get Stratocasters made in different places with different price points. And Gretsch kind of has that too. Then they have their really kind of handmade, guitars and this red Gretsch that you're talking about. It's actually a 1959 reissue, Chet Atkins model. And if you go way back and find Chet Atkins' first record, I think maybe his first record. He's on the front cover and he's holding that red Gretsch. It's got one pickup on it and
Mm-hmm.
one knob. You know, and I saw that guitar. I said, man, I mean, that's a Gretsch that I can understand. It doesn't have all the switches and all the kind of stuff. It's got one pickup and a volume knob. And so all I got to do is turn it all the way up, and I'm on. I don't have to do
Yeah.
anything else. It's got a little three position switch, a little EQ switch. I just leave it in the middle all the time. So I just kind of run the volume up and down. If I want it a little cleaner, I just back it off. You want a little more grind to it, you just kind of run it all the way up. So, and it's got a what they call a Powertron pickup on it. Now,
Mm-hmm.
Chet Atkins back in 1959, when he on the original version, he didn't have a Powertron pickup. That's not what he was interested in. He was in more. But how Chet Atkins plays. Is probably more about that, maybe more about that than I do. But now in the so-called modern version of it, they got this Powertron pickup and it's really hot, and then so you can play rock and roll with it, or you can back it off and be more of a jazzy kind of Chet Atkins style, I suppose. But just a great guitar. And I kind of gravitate toward guitars that maybe everyone doesn't have.
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of looking for something different. I mean, every band's got a Stratocaster, and every band's got a Les Paul in it, or not every band, but you know what I mean.
Right,
They have
right.
a lot of people playing those, So, and I've also got a black Gretsch. It's like a duo jet.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of shaped like a Les Paul,
Okay.
and George Harrison had one, and I read a quote where he said the duo jet was the first decent guitar he ever owned, and now there's multiple versions. Gretsch makes multiple versions of that duo jet, and the one that I have again has those kind of Powertron, more rock and roll pickups. They're just hotter. So you can kind of get that Les Paul sound, kind of. It. Um, but it's not a Les Paul, and that's kind of what I liked about it. It was a little different. It's black. It's got a Bigsby on it, vibrato, which is kind of old school. And every guitar I have almost has a Bigsby on it. I just enjoy
Okay.
that toy.
Right.
So
And the
so
Bigsby is that the bar?
that's a
That what
twangy bar. Yeah, you just put wah, 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 you can hit a chord at the end, give it a quick little, just a little kind of thing at the end. I mean, it's not like Eddie Van Halen, these power dives and all that stuff. It's not made for that kind of stuff. It's not that. It's just a little touch. Just a little
right,
vibrato.
right. We've got
Anyway,
as keyboard players. I think it's and I just saw it not too long ago. Mellotron. And they've got this big whammy bar going across the top, and it's got an organ sound to it, similar and whatnot. And I saw the guy just bending down on the whammy bar, and it gives you a similar kind of tone when you hit it. And I'm like, okay,
wow.
I have never seen that before, and I recently saw one this year, and I have to remember who the person is that I saw that with, but I was like, on a keyboard? Really? But
Really, I've
it's
never
been
seen
around
that.
for a while.
Never
It's been
seen
around
that.
for a while. I just never heard of it. So
Yeah,
Gretchen
yeah,
sounds like one of your models there. What about your
yeah.
mics and your other equipment? Do you have any preferences on those?
Oh, I use when I'm playing live, like a Shure SM58. I mean, that's pretty much the everybody's workhorse, for playing live. I shouldn't say everybody because people use different things, of course, but the SM58's a good mic. I also use a Shure. I've got a Shure wireless uh, setup that I use for my guitar, and then I've got a Shure in ear monitor system that I try to use whenever I can when we're playing live.
Mm-hmm.
So if you go with, I mean, I've always felt like if you go with a brand like Shure, it's not going to be the cheapest, but it's probably going to be reliable and do what you
Yep.
expect it to do.
It's a very reliable line of microphones that they make.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
we I go with Shure. I've used Sennheisers. I
right,
also have company called Samson, which basically is the old Sam Ash generic model. And
really,
um, I've got four of their microphones actually um, for the bands and everything. When the guys forget theirs or something, I'm always the Boy Scout with something. And because I do live audio as well, so and
sure,
video recording and everything else. Band will get me to do their live, use a small 4 or 5 piece band, and I'll stream their recording to whatever YouTube channel they want or whatever other platform, or stream it to our platform here at Kimsey Entertainment, and
sure,
do it from there. um but yeah, Sure is a very dependable line of microphones. Like I said, I'm a chord guy when it comes to keyboard. Fender is always at the
right,
top of the list
yeah,
there.
yeah,
You know, I
yeah.
I was
Of
just
course,
telling you,
Gibson for
that,
guitars.
oh gosh, yes.
Yeah,
There's so many good brands out there, and
yeah,
when I went to NAM, it was just chock full of various
yeah,
manufacturers out there. You go, I took some video and I'm still editing it, and I'll put it up on my YouTube page, but
right.
it was just wall to wall with product. And I was every time I've gone, it's like being a little kid in a candy store. It's like,
Yeah. What'd you
oh,
buy? What
oh,
you
I
must.
didn't buy anything, but I just went to keep track of what it is, and I'll come back and get it later. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah, yeah.
um, wait till the sales come up and everything else, and do it that way.
Sure, sure.
Yep. So, as far as your songwriting goes, um, you got a booking agent that described your music as, and I quote it from your bio, original
Right.
music to evoke nostalgia, longing, joy, and hope. So, can you talk to us about your songwriting process and where you can find the inspiration for your emotional songs?
Yeah. Yeah. I remember that quote, nostalgia. I wasn't quite sure about that. I guess that's someone's actually, that was a venue person who made that observation, nostalgia, longing, and I went, wow, okay. I mean, everybody's going to hear what they hear, you know.
Hmm.
I wouldn't have necessarily chosen that word, but it may, I guess it's true. I guess it's true in some sense. Where do I get my material or my inspiration? I get it from I get it from just from listening. You know, I mean, maybe you'll say something today, or or vice versa, and I'll go write a song, and you go write a song. You know,
Wow.
you know. Well, yeah, I mean, you never know. You know, I mean, just from conversations, and
Yeah.
people say all kinds of things. You know, and make little comments, and you, oh, that sounds like a catchy phrase. There might be a song there somewhere. I mean, I was in the post office, and the Satellite Beach post office, and there was a guy trying to pick up a girl in the line at the post office. You know, he was making time with this girl. You know, and we're all standing because you got lots of time to stand around in a post office. You know, when you're in the
Yeah.
line. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
so he was trying to make time with this girl. You know, and he wasn't having much success. Well, she went up to the window, got her stamps and left. And so he goes right up to the window next and says to the clerk, "Hey man, was she married?" And and the clerk says, "Sir, I don't know if she was married or not. She just came in to buy stamps, you know." So he turns around and he says to all of us, because we're all watching this. I mean, what else have we got to do in
There
line?
you
And
go.
he
Right.
says to us,
Right.
"You know, I'm just too old to be shy." And I went, "Too old?" You know,
There's a
and he
song
was,
in there somewhere.
yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, I thought it was kind of funny because he was in his 20s, you know, and this guy says he's too old to be shy. So, well, that's
Wow.
okay. It was true for him, you know, it was true for him.
Wow.
So I said, there's definitely a song there. So I went home and I wrote a song called Too Old to Be Shy. And then I tacked on Too Young to Fade Away.
Oh God, I
And so,
like that. Too
and
old
so,
to be
be
shy,
shy and too
too
young
young
to
to
fade
fade
away.
away.
So anyway, so I wrote that. So you never know, you know, if you go to the post office today, you got to keep your ears open, you know. Never know what you might hear. So, you know, so it's that, and then members of my family, or personal experiences. You know, I don't. I'm not going to write a song about someone in my family without their permission. You know,
Hmm.
everything. You know, all those relationships that you have in your life, they kind of they feed you. You know, you don't have to name anybody, but it all feeds you. You know, and it's and and so I got a song on the album, on the Shades of Light is the name of the album. This is my commercial, Shades of Light.
Hmm.
Uh, and one of the songs is called Proud, and I wrote that song about my son. I wrote it. It's clearly it's all about him, and he knows it. And I asked his permission to put it on the record. I said, I'm doing this record. I'd like to put Proud on there. Is that okay with you? And he said, have at it, Dad. You know, go ahead. I said, great. Okay. Thank you very much. And, there's another song on the album. I think you mentioned it. You mentioned Henry back there.
Hmm.
Uncle was one of my uncles, one of my all-time fun kind of favorite uncles, you know, and, uh, and he was just a cool guy and a memorable guy to me. So I wrote a song and that about him. And it's clearly about him. I mean, I'm naming Uncle Henry. So it's clearly about him. It's not just somewhat a general kind of story, but
Right. Would it be
so,
safe
you
to
know,
assume that with that particular song, Um, and I get it as a musician that there is a mandolin in the song.
There's absolutely a mandolin in the song. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, he used
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
mandolin influence. So you
Yeah.
gotta have a
Yeah.
mandolin in the songs.
Yeah. He was the mandolin guy. He was Uncle Henry was the southern guy, born in South Georgia, grew up in North Florida.
Hmm.
He worked for Southern Bell was the telephone company,
Right.
and he was one of those guys, back in the day that they would strap these these cleats onto the bottom of their shoes with straps, and they would climb up,
On the
and they
telephone pole.
and they have a belt around there, and they go up all the way up to the top of the pole, and they put
Hmm.
the telephone wires all back together after the hurricane blew through and took everything down. They'd go back up and put everything back together. Anyway, so Henry did that, for like 35 years for Southern Bell,
Wow.
and got him got
Wow.
him got a gold watch. And when he wasn't doing that, he built himself a little one-room camp out on a lake just outside of Jacksonville. I mean, just a modest one-room little, we're talking, small, just a little,
Hmm.
unpretentious little lakeside place. And we'd go out there and fish, and we'd go out there and water ski. And then when all the when all the skiing and all the fish had been fried and all of that, then we'd sit around, and he would get out his mandolin. He had no Gibson mandolin, I think it was,
Hmm.
and he would sing all the gospel songs, in that real southern kind of nasally country bluegrassy kind of twang, and just that kind of real that kind of voice. And so he would do that. And that, I mean, that was a fun time for me all through high school, and even into college, go hang out with Uncle Henry. Just a fun, unpretentious, down to earth. He said, "I'm a Florida cracker, man. That's who I am." I'm not trying to be anybody but who I am.
That's all
You
you
know,
can do, and that's all you
that's all
can
you
be
can
is
do,
be
man. You
yourself.
can try, but it boils right down. You got to be who you are. Anyway, so
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
so what was the question now? We were talking about Uncle Henry,
um,
talking about influences, I guess.
yeah, just on the
Influences, yeah,
influence and how
yeah.
you
So
find the inspiration in your songs.
yeah, and also, well, I think a big part of it for me is just, I mean, I grew up in the church too,
Right.
and I worked in the church full time. I did youth ministry, and in the Presbyterian Church, and I worked I was a pastor or associate pastor in 4 or 5 churches,
Hmm.
mostly in Florida, one up in North Carolina, and um, and so I have that it's a faith base, really, and
Right.
it's that's just kind of how it's those kind of love and compassion and empathy and caring, and trying to do the right thing for your brother, and those kinds of things are just kind of ingrained in me. And I'm not suggesting that I do a good job of those on a daily basis, but that's where I try to go in my life, and so that influences my music as well. I'm not going to be I will never try never ever to be disrespectful of people in my music,
Right. Right.
or or say ugly things about people in my music, or put people down. I always try to, I mean, I will try to be as positive and as uplifting as and as inclusive
Hmm.
as I can be. Diversity and inclusivity is not real popular in the world in some
Yeah,
segments.
no,
Yeah,
it's not, but that's
but it
okay
but it's
because
but
it
it's
will
where
make
I
a
came.
comeback.
It's where I come from. I mean, that's
Yeah.
what that's what I was grown up to. I grew up to believe that those things were important. And so,
Hmm.
I mean, I don't wear it on my sleeve, but
Yeah.
it gets back to that. That's kind of who I am, and that comes out, finds its way out into the music.
Right. Because you just went right into the next question I was going to ask
I did.
about, and by your own words, um, your music is welcoming, respectful, and hopeful. And I was going to ask you how you weave those values into your songwriting and your performance. And I was going to
Yeah.
actually, but you beat me to it, mention that faith based life. I was
Yeah.
raised in a Methodist church.
Okay.
So I've played UMC, United Methodist Church, AME, African Methodist Episcopal. I played Episcopal churches, Presbyterian churches, because I would just
Okay.
cover for other musicians for the most part when they
Right. Right.
couldn't do a Sunday for whatever reason. I get the call, Will, can you come and play? And I was like, okay, I don't play organ. That's all right. They'll take you on straight piano. I just have the toughest time on the organ. I can't get my feet right. Practice, I'm sure I will, but I'm a two keyboard guy and I'll get the feet one day. But I've
That's got
got,
to be tough.
oh man,
It's gotta be hard playing those foot pedals. I don't know how you guys do that.
I don't know how they do it either, but I've tried it. I played a pipe organ, um, an large electric organ, which had a very similar to a pipe organ sound to it. Um, it's it's not easy. I had to basically split
Right.
my brain into three different things because it's basically three keyboards you're playing simultaneously. Um,
Wow.
you're comping chords. For me, I learned to comp chords with my left hand and the melody with the right, and then got to do the bass with the feet.
Oh yeah. Wow.
So I've got to think of three parts almost at the same time. And that is two parts is enough for me. I've only got three working brain cells. So there you go. I'm
Yeah.
trying to keep them going. And
Yeah.
then the third part, I'm just like,
Yeah.
I just could not get it. And with practice, it'll come. But, I really don't have a need right now to get the feet together. But I guess if I bought a set of foot pedals and in the Baptist church, gospel music, one of the
Sure.
main staple instruments is the Hammond organ. And there's one specifically known as the Hammond B3. B3 is the
That
model.
that's the
And
organ, man.
oh yeah, that's the organ. And it's the
Yeah.
Southern Rock organ, it's the church organ, it's the organ of organs for every piano player, keyboard player, no matter what style of music, if it's got an organ in it, chances are the keyboard player is using a Hammond B3
B3.
with the
That's
giant speaker, the giant Leslie speaker going and everything. And it's just like,
Yep.
and because it's got a fan in it and it whirls and
Yeah.
it gives you that kind of sound going. I know I sounded just then like Mr. Ed. I didn't mean to, but it gives your tone kind of a
Yeah.
warbly sound when you turn on what
Yeah.
they call the Leslie speaker.
Yeah.
And it's just a very unique sound to have. And, same concept, two keyboards, foot pedals. And that's one of the things I saw when I was at
Mm.
NAM. Going off on a tangent, but they had the Hammond display. And there's another keyboard company called Nord, which is really gaining a lot of popularity.
Right.
They have got a great sound, but Hammond has scaled down its Hammond B3, and now it's an SK model, I believe. And because those things are humongous, and you need two, maybe three people just to get them from one side of the stage to the other. And they scaled it down so that it's more like electronic keyboards to make it
Yeah.
easier for transportation, and you can put it on on a stand, a two-tier stand. But they've taken the foot pedals and they have shrunk them as well so that they're easier for transportation,
Right.
and it takes a lot less time. It's easier on your back because I'm almost in my 60s. I'll be
Right.
there soon. And you don't have to give yourself a hernia.
Yeah.
You can, if you have to do it by yourself, it's a lot easier to set up and everything. And you still have that dynamic Hammond organ sound that you had with the
Yeah.
original B3. And
Does it still have the drawbars on it and everything?
oh yeah,
The
the
the ones you're talking
drawbars.
about?
Yep, they kept
Yeah.
the drawbars. They just took all of the wood and everything else and got rid of it and just said, okay, put it in a keyboard, put the drawbars. Okay, boom. We'll put all the switches somewhere else.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So they kept all the basics of a B3, but condensed it, got rid of the wood,
Yeah.
and just keyboard styled it.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't have a problem getting it if I ever found the need to have that. But you know, I've
Yeah.
got some pretty decent sounds in my keyboard, so I can
Yeah.
replicate
Yeah.
the sound. I can get close
Right.
enough to it to where it's
Right.
you know, where it'll
Yeah.
do for the song. But as I was asking, your faith and the beliefs and the things that both of us grew up with, um,
Right.
so you get those in your music, you get them in your songs. I don't think for us it's difficult because it just kind of comes out to incorporate that into the music. But how do you get it
Right.
into your music?
Yeah, well, I think you just said it. It just kind of comes out, you know. I mean, it's not something that I sit down and say, "Gee, I've got to make some reference to kindness or something," in my song, you know. But um, if the song it calls for that, I mean, if the song is going in that direction, I won't back away from it, you know. Um, um, I mean, I have some songs that are where wear my faith, more on my sleeve, and you
Hmm.
might call them Jesus songs, but I think the majority of the songs, at least in what I've been writing in probably the last 10 years, well, 5 years maybe, or so, are just are songs that they're about people and relationships, and perhaps the world and how we treat one another and whatnot, and just kind of emulating, lifting up those kind of qualities that 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 I think that for me Jesus represented, and Jesus were important to him.
Right.
And so I can kind of insert those because that's what I think is important. So like you said, it's an easy kind of transition, because that's where I see the world.
Right,
Does that make sense?
exactly. It does. It makes
Yeah.
perfect sense. You you're not wearing it on your sleeve, but it's a part of you. People can sense, you know, a good spirit, a healthy spirit out of a person almost
Yeah.
immediately. Um, some of us call it the vibe, others call it the spirit. Um, you know, one of the things that I picked up when I was playing. I was a director of music for a small Baptist church uh, in Orange County. They called it the Holy Spirit will lead you to, and then they'll finish the sentence, whatever it is, um, and it'll show you so and so's temperament, and the Holy Spirit will lead you to this person's mannerisms, this person's spirit, and you'll be able to pick it up. You just know when you run into somebody, whether they're honest, good, or whatever. You just feel it, and the person doesn't wear it on their sleeve, but you can
Right.
just sense it. And when you're doing music, you can sense that it came from a place. This song came from a place of love. This song came from
Yeah.
a place of some kind of hurt, if it's a
Yeah.
relationship hurt or something. Um, the song is a happy party song. Uh,
Yeah.
you know, I write a lot of R&B stuff, so it's like, okay, this song is just a funk jam. Just
Right.
get off your butt and go dance.
That's
That's all
right.
this
That's
song is
right.
for. Just
Uh,
get up and party,
Yeah.
burn some
Yeah.
calories, whatever it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah. Every
And you
song
just
doesn't have to have this deep meaning. I mean, yeah.
It's just
It's okay to have fun, you know.
exactly. It's a simple, fun song that makes absolutely no sense whatsoever lyrically, but it's just meant to have
That's
fun.
right.
Um,
That's right.
I was having a conversation with someone not too long ago, and we were talking about the purpose of the arts in general, music and everything. And I thought about, of all people, Rob Zombie, the horror movie writer. And I gave the example of Rob's job is to scare the crap out of you. And if he did that and you went to watch one of his movies in the theater or at home and you're like, hey, ready to fall out of the chair because the villain scared you senseless because you were not expecting him or her to come around that corner with that axe or that big giant blade, and boom, there they are. He's done his job.
Yeah.
His job is to scare you. For
Right,
us as
right.
musicians, our job is to evoke other emotions. We're not trying to scare you with our music unless, unless it's a work for hire and they hire us to do the music for the horror movie.
Right, right, right.
And in that case, then I have to say, okay, I need to be specific, like you were saying about your song. It's not necessarily trying to talk about goodness, fairness specifically, unless again it's a work for hire and somebody says, hey, I need you to write a song about goodness and fairness, and I have to have fairness in the lyric, for a specific commercial or something or other. Or, back to the horror movie example, if I was hired, I would have to find a an audio patch, sound that would sound scary. It's like, and I give so much props to the guy who wrote the Halloween music. And when Michael came, everybody knows this iconic the simple single piano line. And another tangent, I saw a guy on Instagram, and this is his thing. He wears a Michael Myers jumpsuit with the mask, and he gets his wife involved with his son or daughter. Because they're both masked. I think it's a girl because the sound of the pitch of the voice. And one of his best ones was he and his wife were at a shopping mall, and they had a piano in the center of the mall, and he's in his full Michael gear. And he doesn't say anything, but he acts like Michael, and he walks over to the piano, and the wife's in the background saying, don't, no, don't. And he sits at the piano and he looks over at her. Don't, please, don't, no, baby, don't, no. And he starts playing the Michael Myers theme song on the piano in front of everybody. And she's just embarrassed. It's like, oh God, he's doing it again. But he's done his job. He's spoofing,
Yeah.
so he gotta laugh. Our job
Right.
is to bring out emotion, whatever it is. If it's a work for hire, for example, and we're to bring out a specific emotion, then we have to concentrate harder, a little harder, and just, okay, the client needs X. I've got to use certain chords. If I have to write a sad song for this client, my brain goes to a minor key.
Right.
If this client wants, a chase scene, again, I go to a minor key. And when certain things happen, I'll do a horn hit or orchestra hit. Like if somebody's about to get punched in the face and I have to edit the sound at the right time, that kind of thing.
Right.
So we as musicians find ourselves, we don't wear our emotions on a sleeve, but we will, on occasion, when hired or asked to, we can tap into that specific emotion or specific set of emotions if we're asked to, and craft music around it, or they do it for commercials. Um,
Yeah.
one of my good friends, Kyle Gordon, he's one of my guests on a previous show. He is a jingle writer and singer, and they give him the product, and he described it as writing really corny lyrics or stupid lyrics for stuff, and I'm paraphrasing, for stuff just to get you to buy it, you know. So
Yeah.
he's got to think of, and he's a great singer, so he's got the theory going, and he's got to think of the key he wants to sing it in that's comfortable for him. Can he teach the parts easily? What is the manufacturer trying to show? They might send him a video reel. It's like, oh, okay, they want this, that, to give you an idea. And so you're just going on, and then he goes into the studio to record it and everything. And I say all that to lead into the next thing, which is for you. What roles are you playing when you're in the recording studio? Are you just the musician, or do you do any engineering, and do any of the things that I blabbed on about? Do you bring those skills into the mix so that it can create your stuff? Because I mean, you've got videos on your website.
Right.
You've got great photos. That's why I mentioned the red Gresh, because even your caption says the famous red Gresh at the bottom, and I wanted to ask you about it.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and I think I used that picture from your website for the promo. So when we get ready to
Okay.
do this and you advertise, you got a nice shot of you
Yeah.
doing it, playing,
I
performing, and everything.
I guess I better start using that red Gretsch on the stage then again. I've been
Yeah,
using it. I've been using a Gibson acoustic. I better get that red Gretsch back out there now that you're making it famous, man.
well, I mean, if that's what you do, I mean, everybody knows I've got Korg. When I turn on my keyboards, there's two. Each keyboard has Korg blazoned on the back side of it, and one lights up big white letters KORG, boom, right there,
Boom.
and the other
Sure.
one, it's painted on with Korg, but there's this tiny little blue light right in the middle of the O. So, if you turn off all the lights, you see Korg, and then you see this little blue light, and you might see that, if the light is right, Korg on the
Yeah.
bigger keyboard that I keep on the bottom. Um,
Right.
but everybody knows Will plays Korg. That's all I've ever really played. I mean, I've hit Yamaha or whatever and Casio, but
Sure.
everybody knows me as that. So yeah, bring out that it's a beautiful guitar, by the way.
It
I
is. It's a
meant
great
to
guitar.
mention to
Yeah.
you that
And you
I said,
yeah.
wow, that is a
Yeah,
good looking axe.
you probably never see it on a stage. I mean, I've never seen anyone using that guitar except I've only seen it in that picture of Chet Atkins on his first album. So
Yeah.
anyway, it's unique, and I think unique is cool too.
It's got the rockabilly vibe, if you
Oh
will.
yeah, yeah, you could definitely play that rockabilly stuff with it.
So,
Yeah.
what
So the
roles are you
studio.
doing in the studio? And what
Yeah.
what DAW do you use? What digital audio workstation when you're recording? And I'm sure that ties in to your when you're writing the songs. Just go nuts. I did a lot of talking. Go nuts and tell us about your recording,
Yeah. Well,
everything.
I mean, I have a yeah, I have a home studio here, and a lot of people have home studios these days, and you can do a lot in your own home studio. You turn a bedroom into a studio, man. You can have a lot of fun, and after you've spent your initial money, you can actually save some money in the long run when you're doing it
Mm-hmm.
yourself. So I use Studio One as my software. There are lots of great softwares out there. Pro Tools is the one that a lot of people use, of course, and Ableton Live and all of that. But I started using Studio One, about 5 or 6 years ago, and it works for me. I mean, it'll do everything that I need it to do. I mean, I'm probably, I'm probably using, 50% of what it's capable of at the most. I mean, it'll do more than I even need it for. So yeah, I do all all my own recording. I mean, everything, almost everything on this album, on the new album, other than drums, I did in my home studio. I did
Hmm.
all the vocals, all the guitars, the mandolin, the bass. I did it all in my home studio. And then when I need drums, and which I did, there's drums in every song on this album. I've got a good friend, Pat Botts, is a wonderful drummer. He actually just got off the road. He's been on the road with Three Dog Night for like 35 years. Pat, if you're hearing this,
Wow.
I don't know if that's the right number or not, but just a wonderful drummer. So I can send him, give him a rough mix, send him the wave file and say, Pat, work your magic, man, I just trust him. I know whatever he sends me back is going to be great. And it's going to fit the song. So so that's great. So other than drums, I do everything right here. And like I think I said earlier, whatever the song calls for. If I hear mandolin, guitars, vocals, if I need a female vocal, if I hear keyboards, a Hammond B3, I mean, whatever I'm hearing, if
Hmm.
I can do it in there, I will do it in there, and I'll just keep loading up the tracks, and I'll have a lot of tracks. And then when it comes mixing time, then I start wading through them. And I say, well, in this section here, I've got guitars and I've got mandolin, I've got keyboard. So what am I going to emphasize? So then I'll start muting things out and, providing some space and some air in the mix, So I don't use everything that I record, but I record everything that I hear, and then
Right.
I
Right.
use just some of that. And I think the longer I've done it, the more I really intentionally try to leave space and put some air in the song. Every song doesn't have to be just like jam packed with going from one riff to the next riff to the next, kind of here's a catchy sound, here's another catchy sound, bang bang. I'm trying to kind of relax with that a bit more, as I do it. So I record it, and then I mix it, and I've got some good mastering software. Ozone. Ozone
Oh
makes
yeah.
makes a really good mastering software. So I have that. So I can do a halfway decent job of mastering it.
Mhm.
In the end. On this album, however, I did actually send it, gave it to a guy to master it. Name is Mike Greer. He has a studio over in Ocala, Florida. It's called the Recording Ranch, and he does
Mhm.
mastering. And I wanted some fresh ears, to hear it, because I've been listening to this stuff. After you record it and you mix it, I mean, it's hard to know what's good and what isn't good, because you're so close to it. It's difficult to be objective. So just in terms of the sonics of it, I wanted somebody else to master it. So I gave it to Mike, and Mike actually mastered this album. But a lot of the stuff, if I'm just doing a cut, and I want to put it out on streaming, put it out for the Spotify and all that. I mean, I can do a pretty good mastering job right here. Do it all in
Yeah.
house.
Right. That's
Um,
good. That's good. I use Logic just to throw it out there. I'm a
yeah,
big
there you
Apple
go.
head.
There you go.
Um, and they recently came out with a sort of somewhat of an AI assistant, and everybody's getting their AI assistants in.
Yeah.
Um, and it will actually help you to clean up uh, the song, get rid of the annoying hisses and things of that nature, and you know,
Right.
sonically condition the song. And of course, I mean, nothing beats having your own skill set for mixing and mastering and editing. So I definitely know where you're coming from on that, because I
Yeah.
have to do the same thing here. I have my home studio, do the same thing, like I said, and don't use everything that I record, but
Right.
record everything that I am thinking of or hear or something.
Yeah.
And like, you provide space, don't want the songs to be too busy, because you may have a very, very important guitar lick that you just feel has to be heard because it's part of the theme of the song.
Yeah.
And you don't want a horn riff to cover over it.
That's
So
right.
you
It'll
either
get
get rid of
buried.
the
Yeah.
horn altogether or blend it down, mix it down so that
Yeah.
it is behind and supporting that important
Yeah.
5 note guitar line in your arrangement or whatever, you know.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
Folks, you just don't hit play. I mean, you just don't hit record and go for it. No, it's the science that we
Yeah.
kind of have to
Yeah.
it's a method
Yeah.
to our madness,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
We
You know,
have
and yeah, and just to emphasize what you're saying, I mean, mixing is so important. I mean, you know, you can make or break a song. It doesn't matter what you're singing or what you're playing. It is, you know, you gotta. The mix is so important. I mean, that's what people are going to hear, and you got to
Mhm.
get all the stuff out of the way sometimes, so that what you want to be heard can actually be heard. It's not being buried and covered up, you know. But by this
Exactly.
other cool stuff, we don't need every cool thing in there. Just need the right things, you know.
Like when you were taking your material to your friend to master,
Yeah,
he had to have a good mix to work with in the first place,
yeah, yeah.
you know.
Right, right.
So if you're responsible for the mix, you got to be able to provide that mix so that your friend can do the mastering.
Yeah, yeah.
Otherwise, your friend might say, did you bring the original? I need to mix such and such out or bring something in. And
Yeah,
you know, because
yeah,
we do end up staying up late. And I know right before I'm ready to put something out there for streaming, I will listen to it one more time and realize, why did I leave that part in there? That was supposed to be gone. Or, oh,
yeah,
where'd this part go? I got to
yeah,
bring that back. Oh, I can't hear this. I thought I did that last night.
yeah,
But you know, so you got to have the skill
yeah,
set. You got to have that
yeah,
knowledge base to be able to give the music. I don't
yeah,
know if that makes sense, but you
yeah,
have to give your music the music because all the parts have to be heard
yeah,
fairly and equally. And unless it's done on purpose and you're trying to achieve a certain thing,
yeah,
you can't let one part outplay another part
yeah,
unless you're trying to achieve a certain vibe out of it.
yeah,
So
yeah,
I love it. I love it.
yeah.
Um,
So you have
so
to know when to stop, you know?
mhm,
Like someone said, you know, music is never done, but you just have to stop, you know, your mix. Yeah,
right.
you know, your mix may never, you know, like you said, oh, why did I leave this in? I mean, you could, yeah, you know, you could remix a song 1,000 times, you know, but you have to know when to stop and say, okay, that's enough.
Right.
Anyway, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so moving on to the music and just about ready to close this out here. I wanted to
Yeah,
give you
yeah.
congratulations on your first gig at the Florida Americana Music Festival. And you were mentioning the duo and the singing. And I guess the duo is called The Promise. Do I have that right?
That's right. That's
So
right.
congratulations to you and your partner, aka The Promise, on
Yeah.
the music festival. And you kind of touched a little bit on the collaboration. Did you want to elaborate further on that, as well as you know, the materials you have coming out now, the vinyl or the digital coming up? Um, I'm old school too, so it's like I still say vinyl, I still say single. Um,
Yeah.
even though we hardly have it, I know vinyl's making a comeback.
It is making a comeback, you know. That's all I buy. That's all my son buys. He's in his 20s. He's just buying vinyl, you know.
You can't beat it. Nothing better than a diamond stylus.
I mean, if you go to a concert these days, what are you going to see on the merch table? You're going to see lots of vinyl, you know.
Hmm.
So
Exactly. So
yeah.
with the
So
duo,
yeah,
what about your
yeah,
collaboration? Tell us about the stuff that you've got coming out. You know,
yeah.
what's happening?
Yeah, the duo, the Promise. My partner in the Promise is Brad Swartzide. Brad Swartzide. Brad's from New Jersey, I think,
Hmm.
originally, and he's been down. I met him here in Florida, and he's a bass player, and he sings. He sings, you know, harmony and backup. So I'm in the duo. I'm playing acoustic guitar, and kind of like a singer songwriter thing almost. Well, it really is. And then now we added Brad, so there's two of us. So it's not just a singer songwriter thing. It's we've got harmony and we've got arrangements between the two of us. And I'll write a song and I'll bring it in, and I'll give Brad a song sheet, with lyrics with the chords, and we'll start there, and then we'll just kind of work it, and until it sounds like till it sounds like it's working for acoustic guitar and a bass. And yeah, so we had a fantastic weekend this past weekend. We had a gig Friday and Saturday, and the Saturday night we played or actually it was Saturday and Sunday. Saturday we played at a theater over near Ocala, and it was a movie theater. A promoter has I'm going to use the word lease. I don't know if that's correct or not, but she's using one of the theaters in this multi-screen complex.
Mm-hmm.
They built a stage, and she's doing a solo, bringing in performers like myself, doing solo performances. So Brad and I, as the Promise, performed in this theater. It was almost sold out. You know, you know, big screen behind us, with images behind us, and then she did interviews, and she'd ask a question, I'd play a song. She'd ask another question, I'd play a song, and we did that for like an hour and 45 minutes, and the people really enjoyed it. And I think for me and for Brad and for the Promise, I think one of the things that we're just discovering more and more is that playing the songs and telling the stories.
Mm-hmm.
I think you mentioned stories earlier.
Yes.
Telling the stories is so important, and that's what people seem to really enjoy this past weekend at these two gigs that we just did. I took the time to you know to tell the story and tell these folks where this came from and how I got to it, and sometime and I was tried to be as honest as I could possibly be, and had tears in my eyes a couple of times, and I didn't plan that, but it just kind of how it happened when you get into stuff and start talking about where things come from in your life, and it was and people really responded to that. So I think for us as the Promise, it's going to be right, you're going to be playing these songs and telling the stories and being real and authentic. We use those words a lot with these days, of course, but I think that's going to be in terms of this duo, just the two of us. That's going to be our strength, and of course I've got this new album coming out, which is just jam packed full of guitars and bass and drums and keyboards and Hammond B3 and all this kind of
Mm-hmm.
that you were talking about. It's got all
Right.
that stuff on it. So Brad and I, as a duo, are now listening to this album, going, "Oh my gosh, listen to all this stuff!" Now there's just two of us, acoustic guitar and bass. Now we've got to interpret this album. I've got to. So we're in the process of interpreting this album down to a duo. And it's been a challenge, but some of those songs have come out really well, more so than I even expected, to tell you the truth. So we're having a lot of fun with that. But when the right gig and opportunities comes along, I won't hesitate to add a drummer. And if I can get a good B3 player, I'll be thrilled to death. And a female singer who can put those nice high parts up there on top, and
Right.
those
Right.
harmony parts. I mean, I'd love to hear that stuff going on with me and around me. That would be wonderful. So that's down the road. So I hope that comes to fruition. But right now we're having fun as a duo. So
Yeah. I think a lot of that you mentioned comes from, and I'll say, our upbringing in the church, specifically churches with high ceilings. And I'm gonna leave it right there.
okay, okay,
um, I mean, you
yeah,
get to explain, you get the harmonies, and if you have a nice full sound, and I know you can relate, because at least out here, and I'm sure they have them in Florida, some of the older churches, particularly the Methodist, Lutheran, Catholic, and Presbyterian faiths, the older buildings with the tall ceilings, the large rooms, and I'm talking churches that were built way back in the day. The acoustics in many of those old churches is just phenomenal.
Yeah.
And you can get the 100+ voice choir with the orchestra. And, I just picture Christmas time, Handel's Messiah. The final song is always the Hallelujah chorus.
Sure.
And growing up many years, I've heard it with the 100+ voice choir, with the full orchestra, strings, bass, cello, violin, viola, trumpet section, sax section, clarinets, percussion, the timpani, and high ceilings. And the sound is just amazing. And you
Mm.
sound like you're in a very large Philharmonic style orchestra building.
Right.
We have in LA, excuse me, called the Dorothy Chandler Pavilion. And if they haven't renamed it, was one of the greatest venues in LA for the LA Philharmonic Orchestra. So I get it when you talk about having to take this song and more or less scale it down. And I guess you're doing it like, you know, MTV style, where Clapton would go from doing it with his band and bring it down to just acoustic style, where it's him and maybe one other person.
Yeah.
I understand exactly how that works. I've had to
Yeah.
do that, taking a big, large jazz song and scaling it down for yourself and a singer, or for
Yeah.
me, for myself and a guitar player, and I'm the one that has to play the bass line, or,
Yeah.
if it's just myself, a bass player, and a drummer, I've got to cover all the, yeah, scaling down this big band song, if you, for example, to a trio. I definitely
Sure.
get that. Um, Last couple questions to ask you, Ken, and thank you so much again for being on the show. For the other indie artists out there, um, I'd like to ask you, what advice could you share with them on staying motivated, keeping themselves creative, to stay out there to performing? Because I mean, it does get tough for us out there sometimes.
Sure.
We count on a gig, something happens and we don't have it,
Right.
or we're not, we're in songwriting mode, and a friend calls and says, "Look, my guitar player's sick. I got 3 shows coming up. I need you. Grab your guitar. Come. I know you don't. Just play the guitar. Here's the charts. Come on." So, what advice can you give for us other indie artists when we're not feeling it, when we are feeling it, to keep us motivated and to keep pushing?
Keep us motivated. Yeah. Well, I I think that the fact that that we're calling people indie artists, they're independent, right?
Yes.
Independent artists. So that
Hmm.
independent spirit, I think, goes a long ways to keeping people going. I'm independent. I may be doing this alone, or certainly on days I feel like I'm doing this alone, but I'm just going to keep going because I have that independent kind of spirit. Um, I th I think for me, and, I've been around a while, but I think I continue to learn every day, or just be reinforced with, I just need to be who I am. We're talking about my Uncle Henry earlier. You just have to be unpretentious as you can be, and just kind of be yourself. You have to be yourself, because that's when everything else falls away, that's what you have. It's who you are, and I can't be somebody else. I'm not Mick Jagger running around the stage, and entertaining in that way. I don't sing like, Vince Gill, and the voice of an angel. So
Hmm.
but I have to be who I am, and realize that there are people out there who will appreciate who I am. There were people out there who will appreciate who you are, and every independent artist, you know. And I guess the challenge is just getting connected with those folks, you know, getting in their ears, or make our music, getting our music available to them. So, you know, you just have to keep going and just be, just, you know, decide what's important to you, and you know, and what kind of messages and what kind of persona, what kind of image, what kind of projection do you want to make to people, and just keep doing that, right?
That's it. That's
I
it.
mean, you
That's
tell
all we
me.
can do.
Yeah, yeah,
That's all we
uh,
can do. Be
yeah,
ourselves, be authentic, keep pushing, even and especially when you don't feel like pushing, when that, for example,
right.
when that alarm clock goes off in the morning, and we being musicians, we may have that alarm clock go off in the afternoon, especially if we didn't get home until 4 in the morning from
Yeah,
a show because there was 6 encores and we had to help the drummer and the bass player and the keyboard player put the rest of their
yeah,
stuff up after
that's
putting my
right.
guitar up or my keyboards up. And it's like, okay, we got to get going because the venue uh, manager is ready to boot us out.
Yeah,
They want to go home. We got to get all, who owns it? Who's got this? And then, well, just grab it all. We'll sort it out later. And you're going home. You get to the gig. You got 4 XLR cables, but you come home with 9. And you got to sort out. It's
yeah,
like, okay, this was mine. That was mine. Okay, okay,
yeah, yeah.
that's so and so's. This belongs to Brad. This belongs to that's Mike's. That's this. Oh, here's Gina's. Okay, boom, put that there. Okay, yeah, okay. Hey, you
Yeah.
left this, you left that, and everybody's calling everybody. It's like, oh, so that wears you out. You get up in the afternoon, and it's time. It's like, oh man, I've got to go record. This is the day I got to go record. Oh, I got to go do this. I got keep pushing.
You have to
Keep
wear
going.
many hats, many hats.
You wear all those hats because
Yeah,
we're
yeah,
independent. We're indie. Our motto for our company, independent entertainment done independently.
yeah, yeah,
So we
yeah,
do that, you know.
yeah,
We
yeah,
we do all of that here.
yeah,
So
yeah,
finally,
yeah.
last question.
Last question.
What's in your car? What do you listen
What's in
to?
my car?
Yeah, what do you listen to when you're out and about? You mentioned Vince Gill. You mentioned a bunch of other artists. I love Van Halen, but tell us
Yeah,
who you like to
yeah.
listen to. I had one guy who listened to news before he goes to the gig. He can't listen to music. I get it.
He
He
listens to the news.
he listens to the news before he goes to a gig. He can't
Oh,
listen to music. He's listened to music all week, and when he's
yeah.
en route
Well,
to the gig, he puts it
sure.
on the news station,
That
and
makes sense.
he to separate himself out from
Yeah.
all the music he absorbed.
Yeah.
He listens to the news,
Sure.
you know, or
Well, yeah.
podcasters just talking. Um,
Yeah.
but what
That
about
makes
you?
sense. Well, I mean, I've been listening to songwriters, you know, lately. You know, and,
Mhm.
not so much bands, but just I mean, I've been using, yeah, I mean, I've got, you know, Spotify on my phone, you know, and I just plug it in, and that's what I listen to in my car, you know. So I just dial up a bunch of, you know, songwriter people, you know, because I'm interested in lyrics, you know. I think, you know, lyrics are so important. So I just enjoyed, you know, listening to, you know, listening, you know, focusing on that. I mean, you know, if you want to listen to a lyricist, John Prine, you know, who's no longer with us, uh, physically, but his music, I mean, he's just, you know, it's a wonderful songwriter. You know, he's real creative and fun, you know, with his lyrics. John Prine, you know, Willie. Actually, as a matter of fact, I'm going to see Willie Nelson tomorrow night up in the St. Augustine Amphitheater. You know, Willie, gosh,
Mm.
man, he's still doing it, man.
Mhm.
You know, it's sold out in St. Augustine, this amphitheater, you know. So I'm going to see him tomorrow night. But I'll, you know, he's on my playlist. There's an artist out in Austin. I think he lives in Austin. His name is James McMurtry. He's another guy, and you
Mhm.
know, I don't know if he's independent. Maybe he's got a record deal. I don't know, but you know, just real kind of wordy, creative lyricist kind of guys. You know, bass drums, guitars, little guitar riffs, little hooky guitar riffs, but mainly about the rhythm, the bass and the drums and the vocal and the lyrics. That's really what it's about. And then there's a whole bunch of guys, I'm Towns Van Zandt, Justin Towns Earl. I mean, there's a whole bunch of guys in that kind of genre that I'm just, continuing to listen to. So that primarily, just trying to get more schooled in that whole lyricist, singer, songwriter genre, Americana.
Right. Brings us full circle back to the Americana.
Americana.
There you go. Ken.
Of course, I don't know that any of those guys have think of themselves as Americana, but that's now we're kind of all under that umbrella now,
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway.
Like you said earlier, it went from Southern rock, and it probably took other names along the way to now Americana, which works for me. It's a genre of
That's
multiple genres mixed in together, influences, if you
blended
will,
together.
and
That's right.
and to come up with its own independent sound. Because you talk
That's
to
right.
somebody else, it'll be something else for that person, But there are enough similarities to where you hear it and you're like, okay, that's Americana right there. I know it when I hear it. So that's it. That's it. Ken Holt, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for being a guest on Music Outlook LA. And yes, that is going to do it for this episode. And thanks again. Ken Holt here, bassist, guitarist, mandolinist. I hope that's right, mandolinist.
And can I say one thing? Can I say one thing?
Sure.
And go to my website, man, kenholtmusic.com. kenholtmusic.com. You can find that's where all my music is. You can get it in a variety of forms, and soon you're going to be able to get vinyl. I'm waiting just for the box to show up on my front porch with those vinyl records in it. But it's all available to you at kenholtmusic.com. Got to do the commercial, right?
There you go. You have to do the shameless plug. You have to. You beat me to it because I was about to mention that.
Oh, were you? Oh,
yes,
well, you can do it again if you want to. I don't mind.
Yes. So again, Ken Holt, mandolinist, bassist, guitarist, songwriter, indie artist, performer. Be sure to check out the show notes for the website information, which again is kenholtmusic.com. And please, ladies and gentlemen, when you listen,
my dog,
you're watching. Oh, there he is. There's the dog. There's my friend. And what's your dog's name?
Bella.
Bella.
Oh,
all right.
Thank you, Will. I appreciate it so much. Your time. It's just been great fun being with you, man. Thanks.
Oh, thank you very much. And folks, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the show. You can hear it at Spreaker.com. And now, since we're on video, go to YouTube and you'll be able to catch us on Twitter and everything else. And at the end of the show, I will put out where you can get it, wherever you tune into your podcast, Apple, Google, Spotify, iHeartRadio. They're all over the place. Okay.
Good.
And that's pretty much it. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Will Kimsey, a.k.a. WK Music. Peace. This podcast is both brought to you and produced by Kimsey Entertainment, LLC. Music Outlook LA is a copyrighted broadcast of Kimsey Entertainment, LLC. The views and opinions expressed on this show are not necessarily those of Will Kimsey or Kimsey Entertainment, LLC. Any rebroadcast, reproduction, or any other use of this product without the express written consent of Kimsey Entertainment, LLC is strictly prohibited.